Hi, welcome to the session. Today we're going to be looking at Hans Zimmer's Interstellar theme and how do we create that using standard logic instruments. Interstellar uses a huge organ sound which is recorded in a church, and Hans Zimmer uses the build-up really well, from strings to organs to percussion, to really go from something that's small to something that's amazingly huge. So let's have a look. So this is our project for Interstellar, and if you notice, it's in a 3/4 meter at 96.2 BPM. I just put it this way to match the original track. And notice at this bar here, bar 62, you have one part of 4/4, which goes back to 3/4 after that. So let's have a listen. As with a lot of Hans Zimmer type scores, it's repetitive patterns that happen over and over, but it's how you build up on the pattern that counts, that gives the feeling and the dynamics about it. And this one obviously comes from something really small, something big, and then it drops, and then it rises to something really big at the end. So it starts off with a classical piano that you can find over here. Acoustic pianos, classical piano, and you can see that I EQ'd the highs off like quite a lot, and because you want to have that kind of very muted kind of sound, and I noticed Hans Zimmer does that quite a bit. And I sent this to a bus that is a really long reverb. It's called Long Dream, 10.6 seconds. Because what I want is for the pattern to sort of create, especially at the start, when it's got this repetitive note pattern, right? To kind of act a little bit like a synth. Because you get this sort of sustain that creates sort of long notes. So it's a bit like as if you had a ghostly pad at the back, but actually it's just the piano. And yeah, at this point it's just playing the chords, so that's pretty straightforward. And this part is just playing this 2-note pattern type thing. Now, for the melody that first comes in, I use a different kind of piano. I use acoustic piano, Yamaha grand piano. I rolled off the top as well, but I didn't roll it off as heavily as the first one because I wanted it to have a little bit of a ring about it. Send it to another kind of reverb, not so big. I use Ancient Church, 6.1 seconds. And so that it's not so massive as the Long Dream one that the first piano goes to. So you get this brighter sound. And this section here is the bass line. I mean the piano bass line, which is actually a copy of just this track here. So it's the same thing. And it goes like that. So it's playing a double on with this piano over here. And one thing I have to note is that I'm going to open up the automation. And you can see that everything sort of has this automation that's slowly growing upwards towards the end of the song. So even the piano slowly goes bigger and bigger. There's a really slow progression. Yeah, everything sort of grows a little bit. At this point here, you have a cello that comes in, and it's sort of like this bass line. So it sort of goes like this. So it's sort of just doubling on the bass line of the classical piano over here. And then for the strings, I didn't separate them so much. This is sort of like the chords which defines the strings, and I use EXS strings 1. Found them to have the nice airiness about it. Sent a very generous to reverb to bus 2, and this gain here is just to adjust for this thing, the automation. You can see that the automation goes up and down and down. It does a lot of breathing in this song, so it's sort of like loud, soft, loud, soft, sort of like a breathing kind of thing. And here's how it sounds. So it's got this kind of breathing thing going, and you can see that the harmonies are fairly close harmonies, which means the notes are fairly close together. Normally for strings, you tend to distribute them wider, across a wider sort of like scale a little bit, but this one is fairly close chords to give that particular kind of texture that this song requires. So it's got that breathing thing going. And this part as well, you can see there's a little bit of strings there to add. So this part is just the intro, and then we come into the proper sort of pattern, which is this part. Now that famous sort of melody, right, is being played by an organ, because as you know, this song is actually features a church organ very strongly, and you can see here it's under orchestral, pipe organ, flute, and octave, which gives it that right sound about it if you listen to it. And if you notice, it's quite sort of like, not particularly staccato, but I can't remember the term. They're just pretty separated. So this note ends before this note begins. They don't overlap. And you have a violin here because, okay, here's under orchestral strings, violin 1 legato, because there is a top line that goes together with this EXS strings, but I wanted to be able to control it a bit more, the loudness and the softness and the crescendos. So at the start, it's sort of mimics the EXX strings until it comes here. It goes bigger and bigger. And just how it sounds like this, just long lines. So with the strings, so I really like that kind of breathing automation, you know, up and down, up and down. And for this track, it's a super deep bass under ES1. You can find it under synth bass, deep bass. And yeah, basically I changed the ADSR for everything to be in the middle. So you get a slow attack, slow release, you know, everything's sort of moving very slowly. It's a bit of like a sub. And it works really well in this context. So, and this part here, it becomes an octave, like that. Initially, I wanted to put a tremolo to sort of like give that vibe of up and down, but I realized that I don't really need it, so I just messed around with the envelope. Yep. And you can see like things start coming in, and the first thing that start coming in is a pipe organ. So orchestral pipe organ, and this time it's the principal, and it sounds different from the flutes and octave. So these are very sort of close voice chords as well, and yeah, it gives off sort of this sort of what the brass, low brass section would do. And it gets bigger and bigger because you can see that it gets sort of like at the starting there, the MIDI is sort of lower in volume, and then the velocities get higher and higher, and you get a bit of a automation curve as well. So they grow and they grow, and then this part comes in, which is also an organ, orchestral pipe organ, principal 2 octaves. And it sounds different from the other two. So it comes in, and there's a volume taper. So there's a lot of playing with volume here. So this sort of like gets bigger, and it doubles with the violin. So it gets bigger and bigger until it sort of like pauses here. And it kind of starts again, but this time there's much more dynamics. You can see it sort of goes up and down, and this part sort of rises until right till the end. But interesting thing I want to highlight with you guys is that, okay, this is a principal bus mixture, and I turn on the ARP, and I set the ARP to 1/32 dotted. So it's like triplets. And this one is principal bus 2 octaves, also with the ARP at 1/16 triplet. So everything is sort of like at dotteds and triplets, and the pattern kind of goes like that. So you can see that they get from a few notes to more and more, and the automation sort of grows as well from something pretty soft to crazy loud, because that's where you want to get super crazy. So here's how it sounds, just the organs. And it really goes right till the end. The thing is, these aren't exact right notes, but I sort of figured something like that, and they're all on the right sort of scale, and it works out. So let's have a listen to the end. And everything sort of diminuendos, which means lowering in volume right till the end, except for the little organ there. You get this little like a little lift right at the end, which you can hear in the original as well. So that's it for Interstellar. I hope you learned something useful today, like how to use automation to create build-ups that go layer upon layer upon layer to create something that's really huge and then goes into something really small again. If you like the project, you can download it at the link below, and if you like these videos, please subscribe for more. See ya!